It's another Secret Stash episode. Don't tell anyone. Hey, this is the Blonde Skeleton, and welcome back to another Secret Stash episode of the Bone Horde. We're going to change the name because I had checked out some, Bone Yard, did some searching through YouTube. Turns out those are the kind of videos that I'm not necessarily fond of being associated with. So we're going to change over to the Bone Horde because it's more relevant anyway. It's like a reference to my favorite video game, which is Thief. And the original one, Thief the Dark Project, there was a level called the Bone Horde, which was this great, cool dungeon. It's like chock full of like bones and stuff. It's just a really cool level. So, that'll be a throwback to that. So we're going to change over to the Bone Horde. Just be aware of that. So, anyway, question came up in the Tabletop Crafters Guild forum last week about flight stands, and excuse me, I actually came up with what I think is a really cool solution for it, really simple, really elegant, and it shows up on the table really well because it doesn't interfere with a lot of the scenery, so you can actually focus on the way it looks, and the players can focus on tactics as opposed to like working around this giant hunk of like plastic or whatever. So here's what they are. Basically, they are a simple acrylic rod that is attached to two miniature bases that are plexiglass, and they're just super glued together. That's all I do. It's like cut them to length, and I make them in different lengths. I have some that are really short. This one is a 15-foot height. This one is a 20-foot height, and then I, of course, have a 30-foot height. So we can make them taller. I think what I've discovered is that any taller than 30 feet, and what happens is it gets really top-heavy. So you want to be careful of that. Maybe get like a larger size base, like a 60 millimeter or something like that to put on that one. But that's, something I'll probably do later as I do it. But the other thing that I purchased are these quarter-inch clear acrylic rods. They're just Plastruct. I got them on Amazon. They're really cheap. This is a package of 10, and I think for all of my stands, which are everything from 10 feet up to 30 feet, so 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 feet, I think I used a total of 3 rods for that, and I still have extra bits. So super cheap to manufacture, like super, super cheap to build. As I said, like you can see, they're really elegant. They practically disappear on the table. I'll give you a better angle on this. They do work for large base minis. If you have like metallic minis, like a beholder or something that you want to put up here, that's solid metal or whatever, that might get a little tricky, and you'll definitely need a wider base on it. But these do just fine as long as they're, these are the regular Wizard of the Coast, what do you call it, the WizKids minis. So those do just fine. This one is a metal mini, and this one is on like I said, a 25-foot, and it's a really tall kind of top-heavy mini to begin with, but it does just fine. I've had it in play many times on these stands, and it works really well. So, secret stash time. So, basically what we do is we take an acrylic rod, we get our minis out of the way. So we take our acrylic rod, and we decide how long we want it to be. And for this one, I want a 40-foot one because I already have everything up through 30 feet. So there's, that's 30 feet. So let's do 35 feet just because I want to get that middle zone. So we'll do 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Right there is where I want it. And what I do to mark it, oh goodness, what did I do with it? Well, apparently I don't have it. Usually what I use is like a wet erase marker. And oops, it's over here. Okay. So I'll take a wet erase marker on the acrylic because it just wipes right off. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. And I'm going to mark where I want to cut it. Okay, so that's, oops, there's my camera, right there. Okay, and that again, you just lick your finger and wipe it right off, or if you're opposed to that, then just dab a little piece of paper towel in there. So this tool is just a miter box for a razor saw. You can get these at any kind of like craft store. I've had these forever, X-Acto makes them, a bunch of other cheaper companies make them. This is the cheaper version, but I usually use like an X-Acto or something like that. There's not a lot of difference. The main difference is if you get the off-brand ones, the metal on this is a little softer, so you just have to be careful what you're cutting. But I use these things to cut brass tubes all the way down to foam, and they do nice clean cuts when you need them. The cool thing about the miter box is that it's got these little slots that you can keep things steady in, so even like a round tube shaped object like these rods will sit pretty still if you get them in one of these little channels here. I'm going to put it in this one. So all we're going to do is do this because this gives us a nice square cut right on that line. Oof. The only hang up with acrylic is that if you move too fast, it has a tendency to melt as you're cutting it, and then it gets sticky. So you gotta just kind of keep at it nice and steady. There we go. She comes right off, nice and clean. And then we have a 35-foot rod. So I'm going to take one of these 1 millimeter thick or 1.5 millimeter thick miniature bases. There, and you get them on Amazon for relatively cheap. I'm going to use my cutting mat with the measurement marks on it, and I'm going to center this kind of right in the middle of one of these cross points on the excuse me, on the mat. So then I'm going to take just a tiny dab of super glue. It'll be a very small amount. You don't need much for this to work. What you don't want is for it to bleed out when you press it down too much. A little bit's fine because it's kind of gap filling and it'll make things work a little better, but just got to be very careful and place it exactly in the center, and then, or at least as close as you can get by hand, and then just hold it there while the super glue cures. The thing that you want to be careful about is you don't want to like touch the acrylic right next to where you're putting down the super glue, because the oddest thing is that super glue will be attracted to the oils from your fingers. The vapors will be attracted to the oils from your fingers, so it will make your fingerprints show up, and that's where the fogging comes in, right? So you'll have foggy fingerprints all over it, yeah, so there's that. There you go. And that's pretty square. As I rotate it, you see it's not really wiggling at the top very much at all. So we got a nice clean stand for the bottom. And we're going to glue our top on. Same process, exact same process. I'm going to place this here. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's put this right on the tip, just a very little bit. A tiny, tiny drop. Okay, I'm going to make sure this is centered on this grid, so we get a nice precise application, and then stick it right on the middle. Just going to hold it in place. I'm super shaky. That's just something I've always had since I was a kid, so I've worked around it as a crafter. It's not the easiest thing in the world to deal with, but especially when you're doing detail work on minis, holy crap. Yeah. Not much I can do about that though, so it is what it is. Short of tranquilizing myself, I don't think it will ever quite go away. But I can still do my crafts, because I just kind of embrace it. Oops. That did not cure yet. Sometimes when super glue gets a little bit old, it actually takes forever to cure, which is a huge bummer. But it is a fact of life. So you just have to hold it a little bit longer. We'll probably cut some of this out. There we go. Ta-da! So after that cures, you have a beautiful, perfectly vertical flight stand. And that is my 35-foot piece. It will hold a mini on top, and if, again, I need a wider base, I'll just get like a larger mini stand and put that on the bottom. And I still have these extra pieces if I need shorter flight stands, which I always need extras. So you can make a huge set of these and have your entire party and all of your enemies flying through the air if you need to. So aerial battles and late level battles are actually really, really fun to do with this method. So you can get a nice cool look, simple, elegant solution. So there you go, Secret Stash. I hope you enjoyed.